Hey, this is Man-Made Mead. I am here today to make another big traditional mead and tell you some of my ideas that I have for it. I really want to try to make some, again, off-the-wall meads and then also reproduce some big ones. I made an experimental apple pie mead recently. Found out it's very fantastic. I'm going to do some stuff with that. It's also just nice to have some traditional mead to really experiment with in general. So a traditional mead, if you know nothing about mead making, is honey, water, and yeast, and that's it. There's nothing else to it. It's pretty simple, and you can use whatever honey you want. You can use yeast, all that stuff. The big thing with a traditional is if you leave it alone, a lot of the flavor comes from the honey you use. Today, I'm going to be using, and this is in total 16 pounds of mesquite honey from Dutch Gold, and I already weighed it out. It weighs 19 pounds in total, but the bucket is 3 pounds, so I have 16 pounds. I'm going to be using roughly about 6 gallons of water, a 7.9 gallon fermenter, and 2 packets of Lalvin K1 V1116 yeast. Now, this is a very common yeast to use, and I really like it. It's worked well for all of my traditionals and other things like that. It does have a higher ABV tolerance, so it could go up to 18%, which means that you obviously you can have a pretty high gravity mead. Everything I put in here today is going to be wiped out. There's not going to be any residual sweetness. So with my recipe, which is, by the way, about 16 pounds of honey, 6 to 7 gallons of water, and then 10 grams of this K1 V1116 yeast, I anticipate that I'll end up somewhere in the gravity world of 1.0, probably 7. That's my guess. That's a complete guess. I don't exactly know. A couple things you'll need when you're making this. You need something to sanitize everything. This is Star San. I've already sanitized all my equipment that I'll be using, and so that's pretty simple. You'll also need things to stir, a hydrometer, and which I have. I need to go grab mine. I forgot to grab it. And then basically a tube so you can put your hydrometer in. First step, and I'm just going to gloss through them pretty quickly because making the traditional mead is really easy. You gather your ingredients, of course. Then you need to go ahead and mix the honey and water together. That's what we're going to start with. Luckily enough, this is the last remaining bit of this honey, so I anticipate getting all of it out, of course. It also means that I don't have to do any pouring. Instead, I can just dump my room temp water in, and it will actually mix in all pretty well. Before I get too crazy and do that, I'm going to take my yeast packets and rehydrate them. Oh, I did this backwards. I'm going to pour my water in, a little water. I'm going to rehydrate at room temp. It's totally fine. The packet says at 100 degrees, and I'm going to go just do it at room temp. It's okay. Basically, you're just reactivating the yeast, allowing them to kind of wake up. Okay, so there's 5 grams, and here's 10 grams. That will need to rehydrate for probably 15-20 minutes while we do this. That's why I started it early. We're going to use the rest of this water. I'm actually going to pour a little bit more here. Okay, we're going to use the rest of this water, and we're going to dump directly into our honey bucket with our 16 pounds of honey. We're probably going to have to use 4 or 5 gallons to fill this up and to start mixing. And I'm going to be using a drill and a degassing wand. So it's real simple. I like making traditionals because you can do basically anything you want with them. You can keep it as a traditional, or in the secondary, which is after it's finished fermenting the bulk of it, you can start to add your other ingredients, which is what we're going to be doing basically, is adding a bunch of various ingredients in the secondary. And this is going to make a lot of mead. I'm making close to 7.5 gallons. And what I'm going to end up with is probably 7 gallons, maybe a little less after sediment. And you can't really avoid sediment. Let me go ahead and mix this up. Okay, I got my drill, got my degassing wand, and this is where we're just going to stir pretty vigorously. I go one way for a little bit, and then I go the other way. So I'll be back when I've mixed in all my honey and water. Okay, so while I mixed this must up, which is honey water mixture, I'd also added some oxygen into it, which is what is needed to help the yeast ferment. So we're kind of killing two birds with one stone. I don't know if all the honey got dissolved, but we're about to find out. I'm just going to pour this straight in. Now this is where I could probably use a extra hand or a taller person, but I'm just going to pour. All right, as you see, there's still a little honey in there. Easy thing to fix this. We just pump some more water in, do a little more mixing, and that will get the rest of this honey out. We'll also need to add the rest of our water anyways, because we want this to be that 7.5 gallon mead. About 12 pounds of honey is a gallon. So if my math is semi-right, I have about a gallon and a third that'll be just honey mixture. And if I add, of course, then my 6 gallons of water, then I'm sitting at like 7.5 almost. So I think I'll be good in that front. I need to leave some room for this to ferment on top, because if I don't, then things are just going to start flying out as it starts to vigorously ferment. Okay, I've got about all the honey I can successfully get out of this bucket. So we got plenty from it. Again, 16 pounds. We are left with, if you look on the side of this, which I can maybe get a closer look, there is a little marker on top. And so the 5 gallon goes up here. Then we have 6 gallons. And then, 6 gallons is there. 7 is like, I think about to this line. So we're sitting at roughly almost 6 gallons of liquid. And we don't have a lot left to add as far as yeast are concerned. These are still rehydrating, by the way. So I'm going to go ahead and add another gallon of water. And then we'll do a little more stirring just to make sure everything in this mixture is mixed together. So I think this will be good. We want a lot of mead from this. I'll go ahead and do a little mixing. Okay, so we've gone ahead and added all of our water mixture. This is our must, our complete must, other than this little bit of yeast water that's just rehydrating. We can take our hydrometer, put it straight in like this, and I'll try and get a good little picture for you. Problem is there's a couple bubbles, which make it a little hard to view. Okay, so we ended up roughly about 1.090, and I'm just double checking my math, 1.09, a little more, 0.925. So if you look on the side of your hydrometer when you do this, you can find roughly the ABV. So this would be, in a perfect world, this is like a 12% mead, which is a little higher than I thought. I definitely thought this was going to be a very light mead, but I guess that honey really added some gravity to this. Okay, so the next step really is to just wait for this to finish rehydrating, which is almost there. We can also add some nutrients into this. So what I'm going to do is add all of my nutrients in the beginning. Now, you use things like yeast nutrient and energizer, which are basically just fuel to help the yeast ferment. And I have used 10 grams of yeast because this is such a big mead that it would take a while with only 5 grams of yeast for it to actually get started. 10 grams will really kickstart it. For your reference, 5 grams generally can do 5 gallons of mead or whatever you're making, but if you make a higher volume, higher gravity alcohol, your yeast have a harder time reproducing if it's, it's just struggling. So more yeast nutrient, which we're about to add, and then we'll mix it all in, it'll start fermenting. All right, I have my yeast energizer, which is called Fermax, and this is about a teaspoon per gallon. I don't have a lot left, so I might end up running out here. I might have to go buy some more. But we have a tablespoon. We would need 7 teaspoons of this. I don't know if we'll have it. I'll go ahead and add all this real fast. Okay, I've added what I can of the yeast energizer. This is yeast nutrient. You need a teaspoon as well per gallon. I do have plenty of this. So I'll add all of my nutrient in here now. Okay, I've added all of my yeast nutrient. Now we're just gonna mix it up. And while mixing, I'll tell you kind of the pro of putting all your stuff in the beginning is that you don't have to worry about adding it more in the future. But if you do have the time and you really think about it, you can use a staggered nutrient schedule, which means that you add all of those nutrients I just put in there over time, over 4 installations, and that also works very well. So in this case, I honestly just put it all at once, so I don't have to think about it. It will still work. It's just it might have a little bit of different effect. Now we're going to go ahead and just straight up add our yeast. And we're just going to pour it in. Again, it's been rehydrating. And it will hopefully, in the next roughly 12 hours, kickstart and get going. If you rehydrate your yeast, I found that it kickstarts faster. It gets going, fermenting, maybe 8 to 12 hours before if you just were to sprinkle it on top. So that's kind of why I did that. Let's talk about flavors. I got a couple things that I really want to do with this traditional. Let me grab them. I've got some of these amaretti flavors I want to try as well as some others. First one is, I love blueberry, and so this is a blueberry flavoring. This will cover 5 gallons. Of course, I'm not going to use all of it as a blueberry. I'm also going to try a maple praline. I want to try a little bit of this in about 1 gallon and see how that fares. And then the one I'm most excited about, because I made a apple pie mead, which is this guy right here. My apple pie mead was a traditional that I put apple pie filling into in the secondary and then let it set for a long time. And then just last night what I did was I took a little bit of this, just the tiniest bit, and I put it in with that in like a little glass to try it. Just a fantastic mead. I really want to make another batch of that. So I'll be doing kind of those 3 things. And then maybe some recommendations. So go ahead and go down in the comments and recommend some things to me. What do you think would be great for a traditional? In this case, I have mesquite honey, so we can kind of figure out the balance of what might be best. I also am about to, or maybe by the time this comes out, have bought another pail of honey. So if you have any recommendations for what kind of honey to buy, let me know. I buy all of my honey right now, at least, from Dutch Gold. Dutch Gold is a company that does bulk honey, and so like they ship it to you. It's really nice. They have great prices, and I like them a lot. So if you want to go check them out, of course, go do that. But if you have any recommendations for what to do here, let me know down below. The next step, the last thing we're going to do, is we're literally going to take one of our lids, which I need to go grab and sanitize real fast. We'll put it back on and stick my airlock on. Put her down here, and just for right now, because my house is at a pretty good temperature, and let it ferment. This will ferment very well because the K1V1 has a temperature range, I think, of like 58 to like 78, something like that. And my house is sitting at a solid 68 or so. So I'm right in that median range. It'll ferment super well. I'm excited about that. Again, a 12% mead. More than I thought. That's going to be pretty good. It'll cap out. The K1V1 will definitely eat all the sugars. So I'll be back with some updates in the future for this one, but leave your comments down below. Of course, if you want to support the channel, go and like and subscribe. And that just lets me know you want to see more content. And I sincerely hope that you've enjoyed this video. And hopefully you got something out of it. I love making mead. I love making videos for you guys. And this is kind of the best of both worlds for me. So with that, go check out some other of my videos, and those links down below to be a part of any of those communities. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. So, cheers.